I promise I'm not biased.
What's going on, everyone? My name is Adit, and this is No Vacuum. On this channel, I talk about the music we like and why we like it. Talk about the feelings, the context, the history behind it, and remind us that good music is not created in a vacuum. Today, I'm talking about our beloved Taylor Swift and her record, Folklore. If you're one of my dozens of fans, first off, thank you for joining me on my first YouTube video. This is very exciting. But also, I hope you're not surprised that I'm talking about Folklore. I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only one who remembers how exciting it was when she announced that album back in July and the weekend that came after it, listening to it on repeat. Folklore earned a lot of praise from critics and earned a ton of streams and downloads with fans. It may seem like a foregone conclusion given that Swift is one of the biggest pop stars in the world and she's generally liked by critics, but there are a few different factors that I think made Folklore special in a lot of ways and made it really hit for both fans and critics alike. Before I get into those reasons, be sure to give this video a like. It does something I don't know. I'm not a YouTuber. And be sure to subscribe because I'm looking to hit 10 subscribers by the end of the year, and that could be you. If you hit that subscribe button, be sure to also follow on Twitter and Instagram. That's enough plugs. Let's jump into it. It's no secret that indie music is pretty darn popular these days. And Taylor Swift has a knack for picking experts to work with on different records to master different sounds, and Folklore is really no different. Her longtime collaborator, Jack Antonoff, has experience working with some of the indie pop superstars right now, Lorde, Lana Del Rey, and he even has his own experience making indie music, Bleachers, Steel Train, and Fun. The National's Bryce Dessner has also been a major force in crafting the band's unmistakable sound, a sound that has been well regarded by many critics and indie fans, myself included. Dessner's knack for making high-quality, dark, melancholic music may have come in really handy on Folklore, but it also doesn't hurt that 2020 may have been one of the best years for that dark style to really hit the mainstream. In 2020 specifically, you saw Phoebe Bridgers really break out and become one of the top indie singer-songwriters out there with Punisher. The record scored a 90 on Metacritic, top 5 year-end nods from so many different lofty places, and it earned her a ton of new fans in the process. Now, indie rock has a reputation for being moody, but part of the reason why Punisher really hit is just how her dark, transparent style really felt 2020 in a lot of different ways. Emily VanDerWerff at Vox wrote that the album's dark theme also gains accidental weight from the album arriving in a summer where the country has been riven over and over again by crises that take endless numbers of lives, while those in power seem utterly oblivious to what's happening. Now, Punisher and Folklore don't deal with the global pandemic, racial reckoning, or any other major socio-political issues head on, but just their dark, moody appeal really felt right in the summer of 2020 and as we continue on into early 2021. So this kind of halfway point of indie being a popular, commercially successful genre that's also loved by critics made Taylor Swift's bullseye for hitting the indie thing really pretty wide. Larry Fitzmaurice puts it well in his newsletter Last Donut of the Night, where he wrote that indie at this point is a marketing term used to sell things and by no means represents any sort of ethos that the artists of which are grouped under the increasingly wide and nonsensical umbrella of a term represent. Anyone and everyone has a claim to being indie, whether you're the latest shoegaze band on Bandcamp or someone who shops at Urban Outfitters, a publicly traded company valued at over $2 billion. Anyone can really lay claim to indie if they own the right aesthetic and the right creative influences or sound. And it's this advantage that Folklore taps into really well. Swift is already a really strong pop songwriter, but she adapts her style to this indie, moody sensibility that doesn't have a super precise definition, but when you hear it, you just kind of know that this is an indie record. So it latches on to a lot of critics and commercial fans alike. The specific soundscape that Swift, Dessner, and Antonoff build together succeeds on a combination of Swift's intangibles as a songwriter and the combination of sounds that Dessner and Antonoff bring to the table. Sounds that they spent much of the 2000s and 2010s putting together to begin with. And of course, Swift is one of the most popular artists in the world. She's been a celebrity for almost 15 years at this point, and she's known as the one who dates too much. Her songs are on the radio all the time. And what makes Folklore different is the fact that it doesn't really focus on Swift as a celebrity. It focuses on her It's just another songwriter and makes it a little bit easier for less intense Swifties to really enjoy. Anyone who's been remotely interested in celebrity culture knows that Taylor Swift has always been defined by her personal life. There are millions of young people who can name off the people who she's been on dates with, names of her pets, and all these other random things about her life that aren't really relevant to me, even though I am a fan myself. This never-ending emphasis on her personal life not only played a huge role in how popular she became, but it became a vessel for her songwriting to really hit tons of fans in a unique way. Madison Hindo at the Tampa Bay Times wrote that Swift's strengths as a musician have frequently been diluted by the kind of celebrity she is. Hindo said that discussions about her music weren't actually about the music itself. They were just a thinly veiled excuse to analyze who the songs could be about. I mean, think about the song 15. And this person, Abigail, specifically Abigail Anderson, isn't a famous ex-partner or anything. It's her old best friend from high school, and we all seem to know her story incredibly well, both from 15 and from beyond. I mean, part of it's because Swift is so popular and it seems inevitable, but it seems kind of crazy that Abigail's experiences in high school seem to just be sketched in our mind just as much as her celebrity romances with people like Joe Jonas and Jake Gyllenhaal, whatever. And Folklore really departs from this in letting fans and haters alike judge Swift's music without actually judging Taylor Swift, the person and or the celebrity. Folklore pays no mind for the most part to Swift's celebrity. Sure, you have the Scooter Braun dig here, the occasional hint that Taylor and her new partner are happy together, but all in all, Folklore makes it easy for people who don't care about the Swiftie gossip that's surrounded her whole life, and really lets you focus in on the kind of storyteller and songwriter she's always been. These reads are really interesting when it comes to the Cardigan, August, Betty cinematic universe. Swift's trilogy of some young people with some names, cheating on each other, loving each other, making decisions that are crazy, would attract loads of suspicion in a different part of Swift's career. It would be all about who could it be? Who is Betty a metaphor for? Is Swift Betty? We don't know. Instead of attracting this tabloid attention, these songs are getting a lot of recognition for what they tell us about living life. Lindsay McKenna at NPR said that instead of writing another set of confession songs, Folklore uses her characters to explore reality. Swift's songwriting may rely on similar themes, tropes, and styles as her previous work, but Folklore's de-emphasis on Swift as the celebrity makes it really easy to separate the music itself from those celebrity stories, allowing people to connect with it on a much more personal, intimate level. Swift separating herself from her celebrity status not only helped Folklore compete on fair ground with a lot of new listeners, but it reminded us just how long she's been around. I mean, how can this kid be returning to her roots while also laying claim to some status as one of the greatest of all time? Well, it's kind of rude to call her a kid. Taylor Swift isn't really a kid. She's 30. She hasn't really been a kid for a while. If people didn't realize it already, Folklore is a definitive moment when Taylor Swift became an adult. Not that she's never not been an adult, but she really becomes one in our eyes. It's easy to take for granted just how long Taylor Swift has been in our orbit. Her first record came out in 2006, and Folklore was her 8th record in her 14-year career. She spent a chunk of her teens and all of her 20s making some of the most popular music in the world, and grew up right in front of her eyes. I mean, just like how Swift grew up in front of our eyes, we grew up alongside Taylor Swift. I mean, I was 9 when our song dropped, and I've been hooked ever since. I mean, look at me, I'm 23, sitting in this room in my parents' home, talking about Taylor Swift and The National, and filming it on this phone that I used to listen to Casey Musgraves and send off stupid tweets to people. On the side note, I hope you follow me on Twitter. I hope my takes are okay for you, at @AditOnMed. I don't know where I'm going to put that. It doesn't matter. But it doesn't really matter whether Folklore was bad or good. Because at the very least, the style that it takes on shows that Swift has been growing alongside us this whole time. This album is a reminder that Swift is actually an adult, and it allows people to look at her like an adult instead of just some kid. Just keeps getting a little taller and a little more mature with every release. Ann Powers put it really well on NPR's Pop Culture Happy Hour, saying that, quote, "People often, I think, disrespect Taylor Swift in that they act very surprised that she has matured as an artist. Yes, she started in a teen pop mode, and she wrote incredible songs when she was still an adolescent about adolescent life. But she's 30 years old now. She's a grown woman. I think it's really wrong that the general conversation around Taylor is always as if we are amazed that she's taking baby steps. She's far beyond that. Sure, I know people who look at Swift in a really nostalgic way. They see her as the country star they had growing up who sold out and became pop after they graduated from high school. I'm sure there are kids in high school right now who love Reputation or absolutely hate Lover. They'd be kind of crazy either way, but still. And I think that Folklore was a moment where people can take a second and be like, oh, Taylor Swift is an adult now. She can do what she wants, and I can reevaluate her in this new light. Or I can continue liking her because her style now matches the kind of person who I am, and kind of speaks to this coming of age that Swift has been really manifesting her whole career. Folklore relies on sounds, themes, and lyrics that are fully aware of Swift being in her 30s. The result is unlike anything we have heard from Swift at this point, but Folklore relies on songwriting skills that brought her to this point in the first place. If anything, Folklore is a bit of a legacy brick. She's using this to cement her legacy as one of the great songwriters of our time, and one of the greats of all time. I mean, I'd argue that this legacy has been in the cards for most of her career, but Folklore makes it even more difficult to push back against the fact that I'm right. And yes, sure, you're going to see a lot of takes analyzing the music on really its objective basis. It's high quality lyrics, its dark sound, its strong songwriting, but really all of these factors have a lot to do with where Swift is coming from with Folklore. On this record, she's exploring a sound that critics and fans have latched onto and have attached a certain kind of sophisticated appreciation with. And that works really well, especially when we see Swift separating herself, the celebrity, from the music she's creating. And all in all, this is really the first moment where we can look at Swift and see her as a real adult and not just a teen pop star growing up before our eyes. And I mean, ultimately, this is just a sign of things to come, as we have Evermore that dropped a few months later, and we have many years to come with Swift's music, and we've just seen her launch the third phase of her career in Folklore. Thank you so much for making it this far. If you haven't subscribed already, I think you're doing yourself a disservice. If you're my friend or a stranger who wants to love my YouTube video and give it some pity, then be sure to let loose in the comments. I'll be sure to read some of them and think about the ways that I can improve as a person. I'm planning to talk about Evermore in another video, so be sure to give that one a gander whenever it comes out. I promise I'll pick new reasons, and I promise I'll make videos about more people than just Taylor Swift. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch this, and I hope you didn't hate it. Thanks. Bye.